JB Live will begin momentarily. JB Live will begin momentarily.
A press conference that could change everything about the Long Island serial killings. An attorney for victims in the case says that surprising new evidence regarding Rex Heuermann's family will be revealed at this press conference coming up, perhaps answering long-standing questions on social media as who knew what over the last 30-plus years. We have a primary feed into the Stream Center, a backup feed as well. We're carrying it live from Long Island. From the Stream Center.
Live from the Stream Center in Tampa, Florida. Top stories, breaking news, interactive coverage in the palm of your hand. This is Hey JB Live. Here's JB Biunno.
We got feeds coming up nice and early today from the Stream Center, and we're going to punch that right up, hitting the touchscreen here in just a moment, so that everybody can see where this press conference is going to be taking place. We're going to kind of set the stage for you ahead of 11:15 Eastern. That's about 20 or so minutes from now, but great to have an early feed. That's my best friend as far as the work that I do to provide everybody with high quality feeds from across the country, around the world here in the Stream Center. You can see various mic flags that have been put up. Mic flags for various New York media, national media represented as well, because this is a press conference that could, as I noted just a minute ago, change so much about the Long Island serial killings. Let's go over exactly what has been announced regarding this press conference. This release went out, I believe at some point yesterday when it found its way into my inbox, and I'm going to read it as follows. Rex Heuermann was not leading a double life. New important evidence uncovered as to Rex Heuermann's family. Surprising new important evidence regarding the family members of Rex Heuermann now have been uncovered, according to John Ray, Miller Place, New York attorney for Shannon Gilbert's family and for other victims of Rex Heuermann. John Ray will release the evidence to the press at a press conference on Thursday, June 13th, 2024, at 11:15 a.m. at John Ray's office, 122 North Country Road, Miller Place, Suffolk County, New York. Attendance is limited to members of the press and to law enforcement authorities. My number one question when I saw this is that, first of all, this is a very loud release. Rex Heuermann not leading a double life, new important evidence, surprising new evidence. My number one question, the first thing that popped into my head when I saw this was, it was very simple. Why is this not coming from law enforcement? If there's this surprising new important evidence that is coming forward or about to be revealed, why are we hearing about it from one? And this might, a lot of these answers might, get answered. Or a lot of these questions might get answered when the press conference actually begins at 11:15 Eastern, which is less than 20 minutes from now. But very curious that a victim attorney, that being, again, John Ray, representing Shannon Gilbert's family and other families of other victims of Rex Heuermann, or again, the alleged Long Island serial killer, Rex Heuermann. That's a curious part of this press conference. Now, and what's even more interesting about this to me in covering this is that attendance is limited to members of the press and to law enforcement authorities. So law enforcement authorities, according to Ray in this release, will be present for this press conference, but won't be the one actually divulging this, what is described as surprising new important evidence. Now, the reason why I think so many of you are here early, we're live on WFLA.com, the WFLA app, heyjb.live, and of course the YouTube page for the WFLA account. Hello, by the way, I'm JB. I didn't introduce myself, even though it's JB's quite literally all over the screen here. We have a lot of people that have filed in here early. I think because my reason as to why so many people are very much looking forward to the information that's going to be released in this press conference is because people have been asking Rex Heuermann, based on the allegations, accused of murdering at least a dozen women on Long Island in New York over the last 30 plus years. This evidence, this mountain, this motherlode of evidence that comes out last week pointing to all of these items that he had in his house and a torture area that he allegedly had set up, and all of these extremely dark, disturbing, evil accusations that have come forward about his actions on Long Island out of Massapequa Park. People asking the very simple question, how did no one not know about this? How did the family who lived with him for all of this time not know about these crimes? Now, alleged crimes. Now, it's important to note that in the blueprint, the planned document that that was obtained by authorities off of some of the digital devices obtained in a search warrant in Massapequa Park at the Heuermann residence, that Heuermann noted in some of his, I don't know if you would call it a journal, but some of the documents that he used to keep record, allegedly, of the crimes that he committed, the murders that he committed. He said that he went to great lengths to, or describe some of the movements that he would orchestrate to ensure that he was staying off of the radar. I mean, even doing reconnaissance work, even going as far to, maneuver around any type of exposure that would uncover what he was really doing outside of being just a New York architect, a businessman who just commutes into the city from Long Island quite often and appearing to have a relatively normal life, where investigators say it was anything but. This is somebody who is accused of being a serial murderer. So people have been puzzled by how in the world did Rex Heuermann's wife and other family members not know about this? I'm going to put away the breaking news banner. I think we get the point that this is a breaking news story and is developing. So let me just, before that gets even more repetitive, let me just turn that off for now. So this release that we get yesterday makes all of our eyebrows get raised because, again, of this header, Rex Heuermann not leading a double life, new important evidence uncovered as to Rex Heuermann's family. Asa Ellerup, the wife of, soon-to-be ex-wife or ex-wife of Rex Heuermann, has, in essence, put out a statement, saying that she was waiting until the legal process played out before, before coming to her own conclusion as to Rex and the allegations against him. But this is a very loud release. I'm used to press releases coming out ahead of press conferences that are usually very subtle, but this is as loud of a release ahead of a press conference that I have seen in a very long time. Perhaps the reason that it is as loud as it is, as I described, is because it's not coming from law enforcement. It's not coming from public information officer. It is coming from attorney John Ray, Miller Place, New York, the attorney for Shannon Gilbert's family and for other victims of the alleged killer, Rex Heuermann. So saying hello to the chat. We will be live on Facebook here momentarily. Right here on, let's go full screen here. Live here on the right side of your screen, This is a live picture from the press conference location. Here in the Stream Center, of course, what we do in the Stream Center, a primary function is to provide everybody with high quality feeds, to do interactive journalism, to have a conversation and go in depth into the stories that we cover. I'm alone today in the Stream Center. We have a busy day here at WFLA. But with the touch of a touchscreen, I can just bring up any feed really from anywhere. And this one coming from, it looks like a backyard or the back parking lot or front parking lot of a law office. We do know where this press conference is being held. One more time, the press conference is on North Country Road, Miller Place, Suffolk County, New York. And so you see that the podium has been set up there, and local and national media represented with the mic flags attached to that podium. So what we will do is kind of review a little bit about this case, and in the next 10, 15 minutes before the presser actually begins. And then, of course, most importantly, after the press conference, after we learn what is this, what I mean, reads to me as bombshell evidence, we're going to, of course, break it down afterwards here in the Stream Center, discuss what we have learned, what questions remain, what new questions have arisen from the press conference. We'll kind of have a back and forth conversation. And that brings me to, of course, the fact that we are interactive here from the Stream Center. We are going to start to spotlight some of your questions, and you can submit questions on heyjb.live. We'll actually activate that now so that you guys can go over to our website, submit a comment, and we'll spotlight it here on screen. You can also use hashtag HeyJB on YouTube Live or on Facebook Live or elsewhere on social media. However, unfortunately, those comments will just continuously scroll on my screen, and it's hard for me to actually grab it. But if you want to get permanently added to the queue, you just go to heyjb.live. It looks like this on the phone. You submit your username, where you're watching from, and your comment. That's it. It's free. No gotcha gimmicks or anything like that. Just a quick form for you guys to be able to submit comments as they come in. So again, we're here for the press conference. We're going to keep this up on screen. The moment that the press conference begins, I will dip away. I'll mute my audio. We'll listen in to the press conference full in HD, and then we'll come back and discuss what we have learned. So starting now, hashtag HeyJB comments. You can also, again, submit a VIP comment on heyjb.live, and it's almost a guarantee to get my attention if you do it there, versus the scrolling comment section on YouTube, which can get pretty hectic. And again, I can bring up also YouTube comments like this if you use hashtag HeyJB. That's basically the consent system that we have here to basically indicate that you would like your comment and your profile picture on screen. I like that we have a cat here represented on the first comment. Leslie says, hashtag HeyJB, are they digging his property again? I have not seen any reports of them returning to the Heuermann residence in Massapequa Park. If they are going through it again, well, that tells you a lot. But you have to remember, Leslie, that this is not a law enforcement press conference. This is a press conference that has been called by an attorney. So this isn't going to be tied to any new law enforcement update. The attorney has been granted some type of evidence. Well, we don't know how much or what it looks like, but evidence that the public doesn't know about. And this evidence, based on what we're led to believe with this release, is going to point to the Heuermann family. Now, exactly what kind of implications there are, that remains to be seen. A lot of comments in here about the wife. Now, Rex Heuermann's wife has not been charged. We don't know what the evidence looks like as far as the family and what they knew. Everything has just pointed to Rex Heuermann. Though there was some DNA notes in the evidence documents that we reviewed last time on stream that made note of Asa. But this happens all the time. Tony Soprano in our comments section, hashtag HJB. I wonder if his wife is watching, whether it's on this live stream or other live streams. People find, of course, live streams all the time to people that are associated with stories will, of course, sometimes find their way into comment sections, and you don't know that they're in the comment section, but they are watching. It's happened in the past, and people have told me in the past that yes, I was in fact watching. All right, let's bring up audio here. Let's just listen for a second. Probably just doing some mic checks. Other comments and questions. We have less than 10 minutes before the scheduled start time of the presser. As a reminder, everybody, we were on the live stream just last week talking about this case because of the just massive amount of evidence that came out in the case, and it was dark, disturbing. It's as I read through a lot of that document. It was some of the most disturbing evidence that I've ever read on a live stream, to the point where people were talking about it in the newsroom, saying, "My goodness, we've seen documents that have such just disturbing allegations inside of them." But reading through that document and getting a better understanding as to the fate of these 6 female victims and what they are believed to have endured in the closing hours and days of their life, being tortured and held against their will, and somebody who allegedly would do things such as ensure that they had proper rest so that the alleged killer would have more playtime in regards to torture and inflicting pain and suffering upon that person. It's the stuff of pure nightmares, as we noted on the last live stream, and it was a difficult document to read, both on stream and off. It's not. We put up multiple notices for viewer discretion is advised because it quite literally is a blueprint of killings that took place over the course of more than 30 years. Heuermann, 60 years old, appeared before a judge. He faces now charges for Jessica Taylor and Sandra Castilla, 2 young women that were long suspected of being victims of men preying on sex workers. And the evidence that was gathered, including forensics, pointed back to Rex Heuermann, the alleged Long Island serial killer. Other comments here, we'll bring them up. Make sure that our VIP comments are coming in off of heyjb.live, and let's see here. Mimi Tonya, I'm a little bit behind on this case. How many charges does he have? It's charges in relation to the 6 victims. I'm trying to remember if there's any secondary charges. I'll have to review my notes. Hold on a second. These are scrolling in really fast. Let's go to this comment, a VIP comment from Allison. If his wife knew about the alleged crimes, what would that do to this case? It would seem pretty straightforward that charges could be filed by law enforcement. I don't know if that would be considered based on the jurisdiction. I don't know if that would be considered aiding and abetting, or what exactly it would fall under in New York. However, you would imagine if police can uncover concrete evidence that others knew about the alleged crimes and didn't, well, but see, here's the thing. If somebody in the Heuermann family was aware that this was going on, but feared for their life and didn't go to law enforcement because they were living with the person who is believed to be a serial killer, we're 4 minutes away from finding out what this is all about. I'm extremely curious, Allison. I'm sure others in our chat extremely curious as well to find out what this surprising family evidence is in the Gilgo Beach case and the Long Island serial killings. Yeah, this is unexpected. And again, as a reminder, it's so important to remind our audience, this isn't law enforcement coming forward with this evidence. So back to the comment that we just had from Allison, if there's evidence that points to a family member knowing that things were going on with Rex Heuermann, based on the allegations that we have, you would imagine that law enforcement would be calling the press conference to announce charges, additional charges in the case. But we have an attorney here that is taking it upon themselves on behalf of the victims' families to call their own press conference to reveal evidence that, as we understand it, hasn't been revealed by law enforcement. They're calling this surprising new evidence. So, again, as a journalist, I'm just trying to understand why we're hearing about this from an attorney. Why are we getting evidence from an attorney and not from law enforcement? Probably a mic check here. Let's just listen. Again, when the press conference begins, I will be disappearing, listening in like all of you, taking notes. And then afterwards, we're going to kind of discuss what we have learned here from the Stream Center. We're going to do so interactively by asking you guys some questions and spotlighting some of your comments. Time is now 11:12 Eastern, 3 minutes away.
News Nation. And you?
Channel 7, ABC.
Ah, News Nation's there represented. Somebody just said, no, the attorney, John Ray, says that he is a attorney for Shannon Gilbert's family and other victims of Rex Heuermann. That is how John Ray has announced this press conference. He's a attorney for the victims. So that, see, man, all these comments, I can't even, they're coming in so fast. I'm going to have to like activate a more aggressive version of slow mode because they're coming in so quickly. Linda, Rex must be watching this. He thinks he's the smartest in the room, I'm sure. As a reminder, Rex Heuermann is behind bars in New York. And I would imagine doesn't have access to the internet. I would bet my bottom dollar that Rex Heuermann is not watching this live. I mean, in essence, could he be if he's meeting with one of his attorneys right now while in custody and they're pulling it up on a phone? I guess it could be possible, but unlikely, I would say. 1 minute out, time 11:14. Clearly, media still arriving here and getting the podium here prepared. I have another feed. I just want to, just for a second here in the Stream Center, folks, I have another feed that just popped up. I'm just curious. I want to see it really quickly. So everybody just forgive me for 15 seconds. Where is this from? Ah, this is Florida. Tampa Bay Regional Operations Center, Florida Department of Law Enforcement. That is not what we need. I just saw a presser pop up for authorities, and I didn't see what it said on that back wall, so that helps me. We're always getting in new feeds here in the Stream Center, so it's important to check things as they come in. But this is the feed that we have from Long Island. All right, looking at some other comments. Again, it's got to have Mr. Burt Wayne, hashtag HeyJB on YouTube Live. If the attorney releases evidence in this conference, will it be admissible in court afterwards? So this is an excellent question. I think that really depends on the credibility of the evidence. Where did this evidence come from? Did it come from a law enforcement document? Did it come from a PI hired by the firm to uncover evidence? I think it depends on the credibility and the really the source of the evidence that is about to be presented. So Matt says on YouTube Live, hashtag HJB, I just saw an article that talks about alleged family involvement in the murders. It might be tied to this press conference, Matt. Again, alleged. Thank you for using that word. Alleged. We don't know who knew what, but we might be closer to finding out. As promised, in the event that this feed, I believe we're on the News Nation feed. If this feed cuts out, backup feed here into the Stream Center. I think this one is from WNBC. Not entirely sure, but engaging in multiple feeds here in the event that one should go down from Suffolk County, Long Island. Again, if you're just filing in, the press conference has not yet begun. Once the press conference begins, we will all be listening in. We'll take it full screen, listen in live, and then discuss this quote-unquote surprising new evidence regarding the family right after the press conference concludes. Man, international audience here. Nixa says, #KJB watching from Scotland. People follow cases from around the world. In fact, when we look at some of the information that comes in after a live stream, I think we usually reach anywhere from 40 to 50 countries. The people that are watching on social media, pretty wild that people follow from across the globe. So Princess says, #KJB, I can only imagine the evidence that will come out when this goes to trial. Yeah, and I noted this on the last live stream. I think that there's still a lot more ahead, and it's very possible that this picture that has been painted of some really extremely disturbing murders, and murders that were preceded by torture and pain and suffering, that if the day that it does go to trial, a lot of those details could come out, Princess, and I think it could be difficult for people to listen to. It could be extremely triggering. Heidi, that's very, very interesting. This is the press conference, and I believe it is getting closer to starting here, folks. Stand by.
I need Gary. Gary, you're going to be up here. Good. Okay. There's a little delay anyway. There's one or two reporters called and said, "Can you wait 5 minutes?" So I you know, you've been there. You heard this. Yeah, I'm not waiting for Lopez. I'm waiting for the cops.
Again, this press conference being called by Attorney John Ray. Heard there, waiting for the cops, waiting for law enforcement. The release did say that attendance will be limited to media and law enforcement. Interesting that law enforcement will be present, according to the release, for a press conference that goes into evidence. What this evidence actually looks like. And this is the first time they've zoomed out. They just put up some exhibits. This is interesting. Again, we're going to be live here from the Stream Center after the press conference concludes. Let's listen in.
Then we can start. Tell me when you're all ready. And we're ready to go. You all ready? Good. Here we go. Good morning, everyone. The first thing is I please ask that we're going to make a presentation, and I'll try to speak as loud as I can since we don't have a mic ourselves, and we're live streaming it. So I'll ask that all questions await the end of the presentation. The presentation's going to take a little bit, not as long as you know you were worried about, but indeed we have some other people here to talk about. With me today, to my right, is Dr. Gary Brucato, who is a clinical and forensic psychologist, researcher, and nationally known author for his work in the areas of violence, including serial killing, especially serial killing, mass murder, and sexual offenses, as well as severe mental illnesses. He's a visiting scholar at Boston College, an expert on the Cold Case Foundation panel. He's worked at Columbia University, the New York State Psychiatric Institute, and he's co-created the Columbia Mass Murder Database, the largest and most definitive study of mass murder ever conducted. He's written nearly 100 articles, peer-reviewed articles, and he's written a well-known book in this field called The New Evil: Understanding the Emergence of Modern Violent Crime. He co-authored that with another doctor. He's presently working in several forensic training programs, and he's a friend of mine, and he's been working with me on this case over the course of approximately a year. So he's here today to do some explaining and connecting of the dots that I'm going to put out there for you with what we have learned, what we have discovered. First, I have nothing but admiration for the work of the District Attorney Ray Tierney and his task force in their use of technology and DNA. But we disagree on two very important subjects: the murder of Shannan Gilbert and the suspicion of culpability of the family of Rex Heuermann. I've been the gatekeeper in this case, or these cases, going all the way back to the end of 2011 until now. And I'm going to continue in that role. And just so it's clear, because we've heard critics, I have not made one penny in this case from anyone, and the man I sued has no money. We will make no money in all the work that I have done from the beginning. We're not in this for the money, and never have been. I'm in pursuit of Shannan Gilbert's killers and the full truth and the facts and circumstances surrounding all of these murders, as I've been from the beginning. I represent that family, the Gilbert family, and I represent several victims' families of Rex Heuermann who survived him and were attacked by him or stalked by him. So I'm not here today, by the way, to just speak about exclusively about Shannan, but I'm here to speak about what we have discovered regarding one of the children and the implications of that for the family. Now, look, if you're of the school that you say all that happened to Shannan Gilbert was a coincidence, all those things were coincidences and circumstantial evidence only, no matter how strong the evidence was or is, you say it's not proof enough to suggest that she was murdered, then you don't stay here, you don't need to, and you don't need to watch this conference streaming on the internet, because you will be disappointed. Most of the things that we know happened, we know from circumstantial evidence. And what we have here is circumstantial evidence. But if you're able to accept that circumstantial evidence can be strong as a great lawyer once said, as when you find a trout in the milk. That circumstantial evidence can be filled with right-minded inferences, real inferences, inescapable conclusions. This conference is for you. I'm thinking I had a case with a newly constructed wall which tipped over and broke a worker's legs. And it wasn't hard to believe that the wall was defective, even though nobody saw it tipping. That's circumstantial evidence. That's what we have here. You will see today that Rex Heuermann's porn is matched by his daughter's tastes, his daughter's work. You will see that we are not talking here about, what should I call it, merely murder. I say it ironically. We're talking about people who are involved and interested in torture, horrifying torture of the people we know are now dead, and many more yet to come. We are talking about the potentiality of cannibalism, hardcore. We are talking about the use of porno to effect what has happened. So allow me now to pull back the curtain. You know a person by the company he keeps. Do any of us deny that? You know a person by what they read, what they look at, and that's especially today with the internet. The choices they make, of which there are many. You know about people who agree with you, what you say, what you do, who have the same experiences as you have, who have done what you have done. We know you by the friends you keep. We know you by reputation. The things which in essence reflect you and your experiences. Now, this is Victoria Heuermann. All right, we're giving out this is the first packet. There will be two. And all of this will be online as well. So if we run out, forgive me. By the way, the full color ones were extremely expensive, and we have a budget. We say that the evidence we have, and this is just the beginning of the evidence you will see today, the evidence that we have suggests that we've been sold a story by the Heuermann family. Take a look at the first page and the picture that's to the right. That's Victoria Heuermann as she tried to appear to the press when you first confronted her at the home in Massapequa Park. There she is in her little girl's uniform. She's 27 years old with a school bag draped over her. Her hair in a nice little bun. Very innocent looking person. The other picture is also Victoria Heuermann, as she really is, as she portrays herself on the internet, as she actually looks. We've been sold a bill of goods. If you look at her artwork, in the top page, her artwork consists that she posted online of a human skull. That's just the beginning. After the indictments, oddly enough, and you folks took the picture, you see Victoria Heuermann walking out, I believe from her house. And I thought it was odd when I saw it. But you'll notice she's wearing a shirt that depicts, right after her father is indicted, for these murdered women, it depicts a human skeleton. That's what she's wearing. I'm going to show you what she's looking at on the internet. And please, do not indulge in moral posturing that I am merely shaming her, who is also a victim of sorts, and she is a victim for sure of her family. Don't do that because she's a 27-year-old woman who tore off the cloak of victimhood when she chose to take a handsome profit for herself and for her lawyer from Peacock for openly displaying the pretend picture of this innocent girl, little girl persona who had nothing to do with what went on in that house. She did that at the real victim's expense for a price. She herself marketed her false image. Her true self, a vastly different self, is fair game because of what she's done. What she has witnessed, what she has perhaps gone beyond witnessing, you draw the inference. I'm not going to feed it to you. You draw the inference. Here is my assistant and expert technician, Lena Odgett, who's going to explain to you these posters and how we came to acquire them and how we can be sure they are from the daughter. So I've introduced Lena, my assistant Nani, and Frances Nakotra, who's a co-administratrix for the estate of Shannon Gilbert and the estate of Mary Gilbert, and has worked with me on these cases for years. Now, Lena's going to talk to you about the technical side of these pictures.
We can be reasonably certain that the Tumblr blog, which is what these pictures come from, that the Tumblr account and blog in question, attached to the username Vinandimadtour, is operated by Victoria Heuermann for various reasons. First, we see from Victoria's LinkedIn her profile picture. This same profile picture is identical to a selfie posted to the Tumblr account. Vinandimadtour on June 10th, 2018, posted alongside art signed Victoria Heuermann, 12/1/15, as well as a clay modeling of a human skull. Second, Victoria, on her LinkedIn, links to a now defunct website with the URL www.vinandimadtour.art, which presumably once showcased her artwork. You'll notice that this website URL mirrors the username of the Tumblr account and is likely a reference to an Icelandic word or phrase, which I'll talk about later. For reference, Victoria's now deleted Instagram also used this handle username. The same website is also linked in Victoria's Tumblr's biography. If you navigate to Victoria's Tumblr, you will find a tab to view her posts, as well as a tab to view a list of the accounts she follows on Tumblr. Her posts consist of her artwork, some of which is included in the digital file that I will be sharing with everybody today, and printed for you in the packet we will be circulating. And on her Tumblr profile, a single reblog. A reblog on Tumblr is when one reposts a post from another blog onto one's own blog. This single reblog made by Victoria is from an account which specializes in the production and distribution of illustration furry pornography. The reblog post is of the user, which Victoria follows, advertising where their content can be found beyond Tumblr, right before Tumblr effected a ban on adult content. For those who are unfamiliar, a furry is someone who is an enthusiast for anthropomorphized animal characters, often portrayed in sexualized fashion. A sampling of this person's content can be found on the Twitter account ebchimera_adult. I might add that these images are not for the faint of heart. It is cartoon pornography, but it depicts various grotesque acts of bestiality. That this person produces grotesque cartoon hentai-style pornography is significant, as it is seemingly the only account with which Victoria has engaged publicly, deeming this person's content worthy of a reblog, and that according to the district attorney, Rex Heuermann himself searched specifically for hentai porn, searches which the DA described as sadistic. While Victoria's likes on Tumblr are not available for public review, some counts are, she has chosen not to make hers public. We can look to the list of accounts she follows to inform us as to what kinds of images Victoria is viewing. Upon examination of the roster of accounts Victoria follows on Tumblr, nearly every account is focused on the circulation of furry art and images. Victoria has a preference for furry pornographic material and dark, macabre art, as seen on various accounts, and I'll go into some of these accounts right now. There's Ebony Chimera, a furry porn content creator, NIEH Furry, a furry content and furry porn creator, I Guess I Should Be Thankful, a furry porn and furry content creator who links to a fanfiction account of theirs on a website called Archive of Our Own, which publishes explicit content. This person's works and bookmarks displays a preference for fanfiction with the self-described themes of graphic depictions of violence, rape, child abuse, strangulation, underage prostitution, asphyxiation, and rough sex. Squeak Squad 524, a blog which describes itself as an art blog of Yiffertons, Yif and its derivations being slang terms used by furries to refer to pornographic content of anthropomorphic animal characters. Lilera, the account from which most of these images come, and it's an account which circulates disturbing images of gore, violent pornography, and other fetish content. The content creator describes themselves and their blog and their bio as a gore whore, with content warnings self-described as extreme gore, hard vor, violence extreme, vor being cannibalistic imagery of a victim eaten alive. This is to quote the dictionary, the prey's flesh being ripped, chewed, or bitten, resulting in horrific injuries and often loss of life. According to a translator familiar with Scandinavian languages with whom we consulted, Victoria's account handle Vinan de Madtour may itself be an allusion to eating and consumption, a disturbing reference when considered in the context of the hard vor fetish content Victoria views and follows.
I'm going to take you through a few points. The rest of them speak for themselves. But if you don't mind, there are many pictures besides what I'm showing you that she's looked at that are equally as bad, if not worse. We just thought these...
You're off mic, John.
I'm off mic, so I'm going to shot.
What do
Because
you,
I'm going to have to go to these...
you want to talk on the mic and then explain it? What do you...
Shall I just stay there and point? All right, I'll try.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you talk on the mic and say which picture and then we edit
you
the
say?
picture.
All right, fair enough. All right. I have to be able to see them. That's the trouble.
Do you want me to bring them to you?
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
yeah. The hanging one
You can hold them right behind them.
right there. Thank you. That's a good idea. Yes. We chose these pictures because of the significance in relation to Rex Heuermann as well as his daughter, Victoria. Take a look. It's people hanging. That's what she's looking at. But look particularly at this particular person hanging. There's a shoe missing. Sandra Castilla was found with a shoe missing. This seems to be a fetish that was indulged in by Rex Heuermann, a fetish that is depicted and looked at by his daughter. That's a connection. Yep. Perhaps this is a stretch and perhaps not, but look at the hairstyle. And consider Rex Heuermann's hairstyle. But this is a picture of a person who's hung. Remember that Rex Heuermann is using points to hang people. This person is hung and disemboweled with a knife that's in the picture. Yep. This appears to be the remains of a human being that looks half-eaten. Remember that Victoria Heuermann is on the internet reading words and looking at pictures that deal with hard-vor. That is to say, cannibalism. If you look at the full-color packet I gave you, there are other pictures in there that are so atrocious we didn't even put them up. Worse than what you see. Of people eating human flesh. In this picture, if you look, it has a strange familiarity when you see it because the torso shows that the arm is chopped off at the elbow. And the head is, of course, disconnected as well. And the body is being cut up into pieces, the hands, and so on. Who does that match? Jessica Taylor? Valerie Mack? Entire slicing up as if it were for food. This is a picture of a female human body, completely disemboweled in the front, with her entrails hanging over her vagina, and her legs chopped off. some of the things that she was reading about, which I'm going to put before you in a moment, some of the things she's reading about was how, when these bodies were disemboweled and cut up, the torturer would have sex with the openings, such as in the leg. That's what she's reading about. And then, yep. This is very interesting. Here is a woman. There is a woman who's completely garroted by the horns of a deer head, which is a favorite theme in this picture she's looking at, deer. They have to do with witchcraft. And you can see what's happened to the woman. But notice, there's a marsh in the background, and this woman is laying on her back, just as Shannon Gilbert was found. Make of that what you will. In your packet, the picture there is actually artwork produced by Victoria. If you look, there's this horrifying monster with blood eating on the breasts of this woman who has a furry butt plug hanging out the back. She produced this art. Yeah, thanks. What text are you talking about? Okay. Yeah, okay, thank you. You'll notice in one of the other pictures there's a room that looks like a basement with blood all over. Sound familiar? Does it match Massapequa Park? Quite possibly.
Ron, could you repeat that, please?
Sorry?
Could you repeat that?
It's hard to repeat. I'm doing it by... This is a picture of what appears to be a basement with blood all over it. Remind you of the basement in Massapequa Park? I won't show them all. I don't need to. Body of a man with the arms and legs sliced off and chopped in half. Interesting, take a look at the neck of this person being chopped up. The neck is not just pierced, it's cut open. Think about Shannon Gilbert and her hyoid bone. Here's what she's reading. Don't be scared, because I said I wanted to crack open your chest and play in your blood. I'm not a scary person. Murder is very romantic. By the way, remember, her father is looking at the same items. If you don't learn how to pull hair properly, you can easily snap someone's neck. If your communication and self-insight isn't on fucking point, dark kinks easily just become self-harm or abuse. If you tie the rope without EMT shears in reach, you're trying irresponsibly. If you're playing with drowning or waterboarding, a 2-second fuck-up can kill. The cannibal picture. Here they are feasting on human flesh. And there's the human flesh being taken apart for food. Reading. It's entitled Brutalized, brackets, Hot Sexy. Being drowned in a bathtub, bonus points if it's full blood. Throat bit and crushed in someone's teeth. Arms skinned and someone pulling on your tendons to force your fingers to move. Hands being stepped on and broken. Making out with mouths full of blood. Bonus points if it's your blood and you're forced to drink it. Stabbed while in a crushing embrace that starts to break your ribs. Wrapped in electric barbed wire. High-powered shock collar and muzzle. Sedation. Enough to be in a dreamy haze while you're taken apart. Blindfolded, muzzled, tied down while someone cuts you open and plays with your organs. Arms strapped down, multiple needles left in, full of drugs, while your killer explains the plans for your tonight as they prepare your body. Punched in the mouth, bruises, body cut up, played with, and left broken to die. And then the instruments. Just like the instruments described in what the district attorney released of Mr. Heuermann's work. These are posts that she... Did she repost these? These are posts, circulated by blogs that she follows. Listen, yes, it's technically illegal to keep a person chained to the wall in your basement. Use their holes, H-O-L-E-S, holes, whenever you please, and treat them as nothing but an object for your pleasure. But you're not a person, so what's the problem? These are sex toys. These are for sex, a bone saw. He had a collection of these items or similar items. Chains with points, hard points. He used hard points. He refers to it. The inside of my brain looks like this: a basement with a bed and blood all over it. Massapequa Park. Now take those things that I've just shown you, and let me read you this first, and then I have something else I want to tell you.
Are they quotes from her?
These are quotes from what she's reading. Okay? By the way, we don't have more than what I'm showing you for one very good reason. We have found that it appears that she erased all of her sites that she had, all of her social media. She just missed these ones. And her mother, we try to get her mother's similarly, all erased, except for Twitter. Now, the district attorney himself makes a list in his latest indictment papers of what Rex Heuermann is looking at. And amongst them, there are 26 of them that he lists, but I'll just hit some that matter in relation to these photos and what was said on the blogs that she was looking at. Quote, girl begging for rape porn. Teen girl begging for rape porn. Pretty girl with bruised face porn. Remember the picture of the bruised face woman or girl in his house. Torture redhead porn. She's a redhead, the daughter. 10-year-old schoolgirl. Lips cut off. Skinny redhead tied up and raped. Girl hog-tied torture porn. Match what you heard there with what you've seen here and heard from what she said. And they're almost the same, or they are the same. Mr. Tierney says, newly discovered searches include, these are the films he's looking at, or that Heuermann's looking at. Hung by tits. Ball gag. And we have pictures that she was looking at of ball gags with blood all over the face of the person who has it. They were both interested in ball gags. Medieval torture of women speaks for itself. Long Island Mistress BDSM. We also know all these pictures speaks for themselves as BDSM, and we know that Heuermann spent time, we know now, in Manhattan clubs in BDSM situations. For example, a place called Pandora's Box. When you take all of these things collectively, are you going to be able to reasonably say, well, just circumstantial evidence? Who knows whether the mother really knew what was going on in the house? Who knows whether Mr. Heuermann had anything to do with what happened to his daughter? You can take one inference is that this poor girl was brought up in this sickness. And don't think for 1 minute, from what you now know, that Rex Heuermann was cutting people up, removing their hands and heads and so on, just so that he could avoid identification. That isn't even true. We know he left the tattoos on, he sliced them up. He knew very well he could have just cut them off, and he didn't. He's not caring too much about identification, although he is that too. He's enjoying what he's doing. Look at what he is reading, what his daughter is reading, what they're observing. It's BDSM to the max. And it's demonic. How else do you describe it? This house, are you surprised at the way it looked? It matches the demonic life that they're living there. Why do you think they haven't left after they know that murdered bodies were in that home? There's much more to be said on that. I say to you, you draw the inferences. You draw the inferences. But how can you escape some meaning to what we have discovered? How can you escape it? As I said, you can tell from this, we're the gatekeepers. We're in pursuit of the killers. We know from one witness that I've already produced to the district attorney's office, who was vetted by Commissioner Rodney Harrison, police commissioner, and found to be credible. We know that Shannon Gilbert was in the Sayville Motor Lodge with Rex Heuermann. There's a connection between her and him. We know something that has never to this day been addressed by the Heuermann family lawyers, nor for that matter by the district attorney. And that is that I was able in January to check out the alibi that Mrs. Heuermann and children were in Atlantic City when Maureen Brainerd Barnes disappeared in July of 2007. We talked to the night manager, and I say we, myself and 3 witnesses who are present here today, 3 eyewitnesses. We spoke to the night manager for that hotel, and we checked out whether or not the Heuermann family had checked in when they would have had the alibi. They did not. They checked in not on on July 6th. They checked in on July 17th. and she read it to us off the computer that she had in front of her twice. And I brought this up, and you heard the lawyers, Mr. Matev and Mr. Macedonio, say, John Ray's a liar, and they'll prove it. That was 200 and some odd, how many days ago now? Since January? And you never heard another word from them, did you? And I'm awaiting the district attorney's look into that. We're the gatekeepers. For all the facts and circumstances. And remember what the Commissioner of Suffolk County Police Department said. If you don't want to talk to the police for any reason, call John Ray. I'm operating under that official blessing. And I'm not giving up. And you can see why. These people are in our society. They're cannibals. They're monsters. They're human devils. They're evil. The Heuermanns are part of that package. Now with me, now I mentioned Dr. Brucato, who's here to address some of the things that I have just now mentioned. Gary?
First of all, is everyone hearing me all right?
Yes, Brucato.
Everyone hearing me well?
Yes.
So first of all, thank you to Mr. Ray and his team and to all of you. And I'll begin my comments by saying that it is important that we dedicate everything we're doing today to the victims. I think it's very important to do that, to remember that we're not interested in the titillating details of what an offender has done as much as trying to prevent those horrible things from happening in the future by understanding these people. I think it's also important to mention that I have not examined Mr. Heuermann, his daughter, his wife, or any other member of the family, and the comments I'm going to make are general about the trends in these kinds of offenders and what we might be able to gauge about someone who may be potentially joining the ranks of that type of individual here. First of all, when people are charged with offenses, repeat murder, you don't get hauled into court, under a charge of serial killing, right? But it is important to understand when there is a pattern of serial killing that is alleged, we can learn a great deal about what the likely motive is of the individual and understand a lot about the individual's psychology. The vast majority of people who meet criteria for serial killing are sexually motivated, and I want you to understand that we have to envision a circle in which there are individuals that repetitively commit sexual assault against other individuals, but don't kill. Within that circle is a smaller group of individuals who are sadistic toward the individuals that they are assaulting, brutalizing them in every imaginable way, but do not kill them. Within that circle is a smaller group that proceed to actually kill the individuals, sometimes to get rid of witnesses, sometimes because the force is too much and someone passes away, and sometimes because this now becomes part of the thrill. But within that circle is the rarest of all, which is a sexually sadistic serial killer who kills after protracted, prolonged torture in every imaginable way. And it is in that tiny circle that we would be placing Mr. Heuermann if he is indeed guilty. It is important to understand that individuals like that are motivated partially by sadism and partially by a kind of intellectual boredom, a stimulation. People of that type, for example, can look at all kinds of things and collect all kinds of things and do all kinds of things to keep it interesting for themselves. And as a consequence, evolve and do all manner of things to their victims to learn about what happens to bodies, to see what causes the greatest thrill. Now, regarding the things that have been spoken about today, it is important to understand that about 80%, it is estimated, of serial killers operate alone. But that leaves, by some estimates, 20% that do operate with other people. Though it can be a group of people that are all interested in the same perversions. That can be a wife or a partner, significant other. That can be one's own child. in that small circle of cases, which incidentally do not include any in the state of New York that I'm aware of prior to this, where an individual actually has what may be a torture chamber or an isolated place where individuals are brought. For example, you remember from the document reference to hard points. Hard points are those little screws that you hang a variety of tools on, like in a garage. You have to imagine a situation in which a woman would be knocked out and wake up in that kind of chamber with all those instruments around her to be used like a kid in a candy box for sadism and experimentation repetitively. And you have to imagine the potential that that's inside a soundproofed room in one's own home. The rarity of that cannot be emphasized enough. Now, some cases that might be instructive for people to look into, the most important, I think, being the case of David Parker Ray, the sexually sadistic serial killer who had a $100,000 torture chamber soundproofed inside a trailer where women were brought by his own daughter sometimes after she had knocked them out for participation in perversions. Another case you may want to look at is the case of John Wayne Gacy, the sexually sadistic serial killer of boys and young men, because until recently it was thought that he was a lone wolf, and some evidence has emerged more recently that he may have been part of a network that was feeding victims to him. And there are many serial killers of that type, we are learning. There is a tendency to think that these types are lone wolves who can't have relationships with others or engage in crimes with other people. Regarding the things that were spoken about today, as a psychologist, I think it would be important for me to emphasize that we have no clear accusations or proof one way or the other, but there are certainly suggestions that I think must be taken seriously, and there would be precedent for this kind of thing based on other cases. Approximately 1 in 5, according to some experts, of these serial killers do operate that way with other people. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'll also say at the end, I'll also like to take a very quick moment to say that I am a member of the Cold Case Foundation on the expert panel. I'll clarify, because I know some people are aware of the name of John Douglas coming up in the bail document as the author of 2 of the books studied allegedly by Heuermann. He is the chairman emeritus of the Cold Case Foundation, which is a group of experts that offers help, assistance to law enforcement, to individuals that petition, families that petition to help solve cold cases. I am sure, given that the average age of onset for people who commit these offenses is about 26, and they don't tend to stop until eliminated or arrested, you can imagine that it would be very improbable that there are only 6 victims in this case, and you can imagine that these individuals would have been kept for some time prior to their killing. I am sure that there are loads of people out there, probably in multiple states, who have encountered this individual, who have potentially escaped this individual, who may have actually been assaulted by the individual or engaged in perverse actions, or may have information on homicides that might in the future be alleged. I would encourage you to please be unafraid to consider prayerfully, thoughtfully reaching out to a group like the Cold Case Foundation, to someone like Mr. Ray, to law enforcement, because when this story is all over, I suspect it will be much more complicated and horrifying than it even appears to be now. Thank you.
What do you make of the
What's that? One more.
Please.
We'll do it. Okay. Just keep in mind one or two more things. In the packet that I gave you, the first packet, the black and white, the pictures on the back and are pictures from the book that was on the kitchen table when the police entered in the last warrant, and when Victoria was home alone. That book speaks of death scenes, and those are real gore, real pictures of sex workers chopped up. That's what she had on her kitchen table, and her lawyers say they don't know how to explain it. That's in this too. And one more thing, and that is that after this, can anybody reasonably infer, as we've heard over and over again to the contrary, can anybody reasonably now infer that this man was leading a double life at home? There was no double life. Now we'll answer questions.
So is it likely that he essentially psychologically trained his daughter to become a serial killer? Is that in the realm of possibility?
I can't speak to this particular case because I have not examined anyone involved. And so far what we have here is circumstantial things that are certainly worth contemplating. I'll say this, among the individuals that do participate with serial killer family members or friends or associates, they seem to divide up into different groups. Some of them have their own perversions and are collaborating because they, in a group, are able to enjoy these things together. And some of them are individuals who have been traumatized or exposed repetitively to these kinds of things and are joining in with the offender, sometimes as a kind of Stockholm syndrome or attempt to survive, sometimes because it's been so desensitized for them that it's become normal in the home or environment in which they're operating. And sometimes there's no relation, that they just are interested in these kinds of unusual things on their own. But you have to take that on a case-by-case basis, and I think it's certainly worth thinking about, because I think we'd agree that what we're seeing here is certainly disturbing.
In his manifest, he used the term play, and apparently Victoria used the same terminology.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of that?
Well, it gets to the point that I raised earlier about a lot of this being about stimulation and excitement and fun for these individuals, and the idea is to extend, in the fantasy at least, to extend what is happening to the individual out of a kind of curiosity and amusement, and to keep heightening the thrill the way somebody, for instance, with a drug addiction might do, to need a greater and greater high. And some people can have fantasies like that and leave them at the level of fantasy, and some individuals need to actually spill over into enacting those fantasies. But it's impossible to say, how many people have only the fantasies and how many actually spill over. But fantasies are certainly disturbing. Sorry.
And share those fantasies with a family member?
Well, first of all, there are some situations I'm aware of where that happens, where, as I said, there is normalization within a home to the point that that can happen. But the themes that are here are extreme, even for people who have sexualized or aggressive fantasies, because we're seeing here themes of things like cannibalization, fornication with body parts, dismemberment, mutilation, things like that. It's not just bondage fantasies. It extends all the way over into things that are far more horrifying. And for those things to be normalized, you'd have to think about the kind of material a person is exposed to, the kind of pornography they might be exposed to, the kind of talk, books, etc. But I think the jury is out on what this is about. But it's certainly worth thinking about.
John, I apologize. This is obviously very disturbing to all of us, but she's still young. Do you think she was involved in any of the murders, like the Gilgo School, helped him at all? Or are you just saying that she may have been doing something, thinking about it in the future? That's what I'm thinking about.
I am not there. I was never there. The police alone have been there in Massapequa Park House. I don't know what else they know. What I'm saying we can infer from this, and it's not the only inference, but it's a very strong inference, is that this girl was made over the course of years somehow to become accustomed to liking what you see here. And that didn't just happen in the air. That happened because somebody did something. And, you can take it from there, take the rest from there. That's what I'm saying. She certainly falls within the circle of suspicion as to some activity that's involved here, not least because we know that her hairs are found on the dead bodies.
If there was no double life like you suggest, are there civil legal ramifications?
There certainly could be civil legal ramifications for the Heuermann family, each of them. They're pretty extensive, I imagine. I'm not looking to pursue them myself. I'm not looking to sue them or have a civil case against them. It's nothing to do with me. But there could very well be, yes.
John, are you saying that you believe that Shannon Gilbert was a victim of Heuermann?
I'm not saying that Shannon Gilbert was certainly a victim of Heuermann. I am saying what we do know. And we know if that witness who was credible told the truth, the taxi driver, that Heuermann knew Shannon Gilbert. And that makes a lot of sense. If we follow the trail of Heuermann, I know that Heuermann was a very gregarious fellow from the witnesses I've talked to who've come and talked to me and given me statements. And I know that he spent a lot of time in various bars and places where there were strippers and dancers and that sort of thing around Long Island and in New York City. The chances that he came across Shannon Gilbert, besides what the taxi cab driver said, are excellent. She also has a Massapequa entry in her book that we found, her notebook of scheduling. And I point out another thing. That doesn't preclude anything I've said so far regarding my lawsuit that's continuing as we speak. There's connections that could be made there. We don't know. I'm not the police. If they come to me, I'll certainly report them. But it does strike me that when Shannon Gilbert says, the first thing she says on the 911 tapes is, someone is after me. Someone is after me. That means she's being chased. She's being stalked. Rex Heuermann was a stalker. You may remember from the beginning, before I ever knew of Rex Heuermann, I said publicly over and over, there's a hunter involved in this case. Someone was hunting her. He's a hunter. Rex Heuermann turns out to be a very avid hunter. And he belonged to a variety of rifle clubs. We saw a picture, I think, Newsday published. But there's more than that. If you look at the schedule that Ray Tierney put out, you can see that Heuermann, in a period of 2 weeks, was at 3 different hunt clubs. He's a real hunter. He's got 300 guns to do that. I have 3 eyewitnesses who say that he pulled pistols on them, one who says that he shot her right across the back of the neck. He's a hunter with guns. Who knows what else? Start to put those pieces together.
The DA said that the hairs found that matched Victoria's were transferred from Rex to the victims.
I don't think the DA said that the hairs were actually transferred. He speculated that they were transferred. The hairs transferred from Rex Heuermann to the body the hairs that belonged to the daughter and the mother. He's speculating at that. He has no way of knowing that for certain. But now when you consider what you've seen and what you know, that might tip the card a little bit in favor of the fact that there might be more to it than just that they fell off of Heuermann. Especially when you notice from the equipment that he took was designed, part of it, to clean up the hairs. And he even said so. And to wear a hairnet.
John, a lot of this art is disturbingly similar to the Gilgo victims, but as far as we can see, none of it was actually made by Victoria Heuermann. Did you look into who the creators of this art might have been?
Yeah, we know that they create this atrocious art for a living, but you're not quite right. Take a look at what I showed you earlier. She created the monster that's eating a woman's breasts with a furry butt plug in the picture. She created that, and that was in line with everything else. So I can't agree with you there. She's in this art.
What does law enforcement say? Have you shared that?
I cannot hear you, Danielle.
What is law enforcement saying of your information? Have you shared it? Are they following up on this?
What I did was, with this particular information, I notified Ray Tierney. I wrote him a letter, invited his detectives to come here if he wished to the press conference, and invited him to call me so I could do so. I have not heard from him. So we're just going forward with what we have.
You want to share it with them? You want them to follow up?
At every step of the way in this case, I have cooperated with the authorities. I have given them what I'm entitled to give, from other witnesses. The witnesses who come to me, if they don't want their information turned over to the police, I don't do it. But if they give me permission, I always do it. I believe that the proper authority for properly investigating this and getting to the truth is the task force. We good?
Mr. Ray, you said countless times that all this is for justice for the victims. How is showing these images, just to sum it up, justice for the victims?
Showing these images teaches us that there is a likely connection between Rex Heuermann and his family in these crimes that have been committed, and that the truth is going to reveal that. We don't know how far those connections reach. We do know if they do reach through the family, number one, he's not isolated. He's not acting alone. Number two, therefore, he is not, as I said before, living two lives. But number three, we should start to look at his wife, his daughter, where they went, who they met with. Things, it opens up this door. I have information. I know where his wife went sometimes. So that whole door is now opened. And there's one inference from at least some of the witchcraft things she talked about in her paperwork and so on. There's an inference, it's one inference of many, that there's more than just them, that they're involved with other people in this as well. That needs to be looked at. These people didn't tell the truth. They're misleading us.
John, I have a question. So basically this portrait was created by Victoria. Of all that you've shown us, this is the one she created. Is that correct?
Yeah, the picture of the monster and the woman that I mentioned is created by Victoria. Everything else she erased. We don't know what else there is, but we do know that.
So was this found in the house and taken out by detectives?
I don't believe it was that it was found in the house, but I don't have their inventory. I don't know. But that's on, we connected it, as Lena has told you and explained to you, and we've given you that explanation in detail for your use because I know it was highly technical. You can see that she can connect that with the other things that Victoria was looking at.
Are you sure she created it and not just posted it?
Her signature actually appears on it.
Doc,
Okay.
can you just say and spell your name?
Yeah, sure. I'm John Ray, John-Ray. Now the doctor?
Dr. Gary Brucato, Gary, B as in boy, Rucato.
And Doctor, you're with Boston College. If you can just tell us your credentials again.
Sure. I'm currently a visiting scholar at Boston College, where I conduct forensic research with Dr. Ann Burgess. I'm in private forensic practice, and I'm in private practice for general psychotherapy at Clarity Therapy in New York City.
Psychiatrist or psychologist?
I'm a clinical psychologist and an author and researcher specializing in violent crime and severe mental illness.
If you need a packet, if you didn't get one, just give us your email. We'll give it to you. We have it. So you can have everything. Okay, thank you.
Don, what about these pictures out here?
Yes.
They're in the packet?
They're in the packet. Yep.
Depictions of cannibalism, dismemberment, and violent pornography. Part of the circumstantial evidence put forth, keyword circumstantial, digital content allegedly shared online by Rex Heuermann's daughter Victoria. But what are the legal implications, and do you believe that it has any connection whatsoever to the serial killings themselves on Long Island? Questions we're going to interactively examine here from the Stream Center.
Live from the Stream Center in Tampa, Florida. Top stories, breaking news, interactive coverage in the palm of your hand. This is Hey JB Live. Here's JB Biunno.
I just tweeted something that I think is fairly certain, that this press conference was not really what anyone expected. There was a turning point with the chat on YouTube when the chat realized that this wasn't about Rex Heuermann's wife, Asa, but rather his 27-year-old daughter, Victoria. And the comment section just lit up with shock and awe. Welcome back into the Stream Center, folks. JB here with you, live across all platforms. We're going to interactively feature your comments. And also, too, what we're going to do is examine the results of this question, but we're going to give everybody another opportunity to vote. and answered this question interactively. Do you think this evidence ties Heuermann's daughter to his alleged murders really in any way whatsoever? Would have added that, but we ran out of characters. Any connection whatsoever between the evidence that was just presented by attorney John Ray and the Gilgo 4 and the 2 additional victims and the potential, as you heard very eloquently from Dr. Gary Bricado say that he doesn't believe that there's much of a chance that there's only 6 victims in this case. Do you think that the evidence that we saw at this press conference today, as shocking as it was, has any connection to the murders themselves and the murder investigation into Gilgo Beach and Rex Heuermann, the alleged serial killer, the alleged Long Island serial killer? Go right now to www.heyjb.live. And I'm actually going to show everybody really quickly before we get into this what the poll question looks like when you load it up on your device. It looks exactly like this right here on your phone. The question's at the top. And then, of course, you can submit a VIP comment while you're over there. No sign-up required, no gimmicks. We just want to have as many poll votes as possible so that we have as accurate of a set of results as possible. But let's go back live to Long Island. You can see that John Ray is now doing some one-on-ones. Let's just bring up audio here. Sometimes you catch some stuff.
But there are other ones, all of her other work on this Tumblr.
Yeah, so a lot of clarifications, I'm sure, with various reporters that are coming up and talking with Ray's team. And it was also fascinating to hear from Dr. Gary Bricado. And I know that the comment section just lit up when he was presented because of how respected of a psych scholar he is, and his words in particular were quite fascinating. So let's start with something that's really important. This is the starting point for our interactive conversation, and it's very similar to Dr. Bricado's starting point. Remember the victims. This starts with the victims. This starts with the horrific end of their individual lives, all 6, and perhaps even more than 6, and all the pain and suffering that was caused by an extension of that. But it's not just people calling for justice. It's also what never really got touched on in this press conference was there an avenue for things to be prevented? If others, whether it was a Heuermann family member or not, was aware that these alleged crimes were going on, could it have been stopped in the 90s? Could it have been stopped in the 2000s? Could it have been stopped in the 2010s? Could more death have been prevented? And that wasn't really, I mean, I think it was just so obvious that they didn't really touch on that point. But the idea that the allegation is that Rex Heuermann was not living a double life, that his daughter was aware of who her father really was and what he was up to in secret, and that in essence that there is more to this story, because had somebody come forward, or had there been more of somebody coming forward, there would have been a chance to perhaps save lives and prevent this monster from committing the alleged crimes over the course of 30 plus years. So it starts there. But I have difficulty watching these press conferences and not being there able to ask questions, because I've been at these press conferences. I've been there raising my hand, trying to, get in there and ask a question. The very first question that I would ask, number one question, is how do you know that it was Victoria? You're talking about digital content. You're talking about an online account. You're talking about a LinkedIn that was tied to a Tumblr account. How do you know it's not Rex? It's a fair question to ask. How do you know that the person behind the keyboard and mouse is actually Victoria? Okay, so you could say, oh, there were pictures posted. Pictures, that was look, this live stream is about your opinion, not my opinion, but I'm just going to kind of bend that rule a little bit with this one point, and saying that the beginning of the press conference, by showing a picture of her wearing just makeup and appearing to have a more darker appearance, and showing like, oh, this is her, out and about this is her with her profile picture or her online posting. That's a really bizarre place to begin, because there's so many people that have different wardrobes and looks that they use online, and cosplaying is an enormous thing. I'm not saying that that's what's going on here. It's just kind of there's a in the world of news, you lead with the most pertinent information, and that was kind of a curious starting point for me. I'm just going to start there with the fact, oh, okay, so this is some of the stuff that she put. This is her in real life, and then this is her online. Look at the difference. It was just a puzzling starting point. And okay, so again, the idea is that Victoria is posting and sharing all of this stuff. You're talking about the alleged here being pretty technologically savvy enough where he's got 17 tablets. I'm going to go back to my notes from 2 weeks ago. Here it is: 27 computers, 58 hard drives, 46 cell phones, 17 tablets, 42 USB devices, 4 GPS devices, SIM cards, CDs, and floppy disks. You're talking about somebody who is technologically savvy. How, if a defense attorney was examining this, if law enforcement was examining this, you have to be pretty certain that these accounts are actually day-to-day being run by Victoria and not by somebody else in the household. I would ask John. John, you might be watching this live stream at some point in the future. John, I would ask you, how do you know that Rex didn't find some images of his daughter and make an account of some kind, and these fetishes, these disturbing images that we saw on full display here today, how do we know that that's not Rex? Now there could be a very valid answer, John, but I don't think that was illustrated here in this press conference. I want to know, if I'm a defense attorney, if I'm Victoria's representative legally, if I'm a law enforcement officer, I'm a prosecutor. I just want to know, I want to be clear. I want to know what evidence you have specifically that states that Victoria is the person. What was it? Retumbling? I'm not a Tumblr user, you guys. Everyone's going to have to forgive me. I would start with that question. I just want to know what you have. Are there timestamps? Did the activity continue after Heuermann was put behind bars? It is very noteworthy, John, that the accounts were erased. It's also, I noted earlier that in a press conference, you usually we'd like to start with something that's really, emphatic. But it's not my press conference, your press conference. But the sex workers chopped up on the kitchen table was something at the end of the press conference that jumped out at me, that I thought, wow, okay, that just being out and about, that is particularly curious. But look, we're not gonna get into the order in which this was all presented. I would just like to know a little bit more as to how you are certain that Victoria is the person and not somebody else in the household. And when I say somebody else in the household, I mean anybody. So that's a really important point. Another second point, and then we're going to get into some of the details, and then we're going to spotlight some of your questions, is that if this law firm was able to find these images with something as simple as a LinkedIn tied to a Tumblr, if I'm a betting man, and I'm not, but if I was, I'd place a significant bet that law enforcement knows all this. If it was that accessible, you're telling me that there was an account on LinkedIn that tied to a Tumblr with all of this stuff that was extraordinarily disturbing, and the images there, the dismemberment on the cutting board table. I mean, that is that there was a lot there that I looked at, and I'm thinking, okay, you have to be sick to really want to share this with others online. You're not of right mind if this is the type of stuff that you're into. A lot of the stuff did speak very loudly. It was very visual and uncomfortably visual, I'm sure, for many. But if it was that if it was a LinkedIn to a Tumblr, you would imagine that law enforcement has this. And if they did, and it hasn't been included in any press conference thus far, and hasn't been mentioned by Tierney or anyone else leadership-wise associated with the case, then they, again, under the pretense that they do know about these images, then they don't find it to be something that has legal implication. Now, again, am I giving law enforcement too much credit? Was all of this activity scrubbed and erased from the internet by the time that Heuermann was on law enforcement's radar? Absolutely. This is all true. But again, this is why, as a journalist, it can be difficult to not be there and ask these questions, because these are the questions that I was writing down over the course of the, 45-minute press conference? No, it was longer. It was about an hour. Also of note, before we start to go to the comment section, also of note, I do not believe law enforcement attended. That's the way that it appeared. And I don't want to say with certainty, but as a reminder, John Ray invited law enforcement and said the law enforcement would be in attendance, or I think he alluded to law enforcement being in attendance. I don't think they showed. John Ray said that he's been working in lockstep, trying to work in tandem and cooperation and very much, on the same team as law enforcement. But the key word, and what I really want everyone to take away from this, truly, I mean this, is circumstantial. This is all, he led with that. John led with that. And you're thinking, okay, is it going to be circumstantial? No. This is undoubtedly circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence can be admissible in court. Can be. It can be part of a case. Absolutely. But we're not talking about Victoria Heuermann here. She hasn't been accused. I don't even think she's really named anywhere all that often in any corresponding documents or anything connected to the Gilgo case. She is just the daughter of Rex Heuermann. Now, if these allegations are true, she clearly has a very particular taste, a taste that I don't have, a taste that I'm sure almost everybody out there in our comment section clearly doesn't have, I would hope. But again, I just want to be sure that it wasn't somebody. It very well could be Victoria, but you have to be certain that the person clicking the mouse and hitting share on Tumblr and posting and distributing these images, how do you really know who it is at the device when they're actually on the account? John, if you have evidence, please let me know. Email me, heyjb@wfla.com. I would love an answer to that question if you're following this live stream as a VOD, as a video after the actual press conference. Okay, as promised, I want to try to get to 500 votes if we can. It's a nice round number. And I have an apology to share to our audience. The chat is just unmanageable on YouTube. I can't keep up with these comments. The comments are coming in so fast, I can't even click on them. So YouTube chat, we are going to just kind of put you on a back burner tab for now. And I have to put you guys away for just a little bit. And we just have to focus exclusively on heyjb.live comments for now. It's just slower and easier for me to read. So if you would like to have your comment featured on screen, if you want to ask a question, answer a question, share an observation, go to that website. The form looks like this or this, no sign up required, and you just submit a comment there, and it's a little bit more manageable for me here in the Stream Center to be able to spotlight those comments live and actually click on them with confidence. All right, so let's come back live, and when the vote counter at the bottom of your screen reads 500, we'll examine the results here. All right, so History Major, I see your comment, your VIP comment, Like, maybe is this a classic case of nepotism? Could there have been? I think what John is alluding to is there being the possibility of a sick father-daughter relationship here. And Rex Heuermann would never. He's maintaining his innocence. He's maintaining his innocence, so he's not going to implicate his daughter in any way. So it's difficult to say whether or not there is any father-daughter bonding going on here. That would be extraordinarily disturbing. But that's exactly why I was grateful and hat tip to John for bringing out Dr. Gary Brucato, because he did state that 80% of cases in similar in nature are going to be of a lone wolf type. The person who does not tell anyone, the person who does not have any assistance, the person who truly does act alone. So, but 1 in 5 do, as as Gary noted. 1 in 5 do have some ally or, whether it's an accomplice or just somebody aware of the acts. All right, Xana, a VIP comment to our website, heyjb.live, saying 100% believe there's no way the wife and kids knew nothing. That's why the book on the kitchen table jumped out at me. It's one thing to have, your room of horrors or your area or your setup where you are going to commit just atrocity after atrocity. But for there to be, what was it? Sex workers chopped up is the quote I wrote down in my notes from John. Depictions of sex workers chopped up on the kitchen table that investigators came across. I didn't know if that was public knowledge before this. I did not see that detail previously, but that's not something that belongs on a kitchen table. No way. That's not reading material. Yeah, so a lot of comments like this. Lauren G, love Dr. Brucato. A Wolf saying, again, all these comments coming in. If you want to submit, no sign up required. HeyJB.live is the website. A Wolf says, I am without words after today's press conference. No comment. I think there's true shock out there. There's no doubt that there's true shock. Also, some of the bestiality, the BDSM, the cannibalism. We knew that there was going to be something very loud at this presser. That's the exact word that I chose earlier, and we knew it was going to be loud, but not like that. I was surprised too. I am also a wolf, in a way without words, but I have to verbalize. It's part of my job. It's part of what I do. Mary, I need more evidence. Yeah. Yes. Need more evidence. Need evidence that specifically ties Victoria to that account. Again, you're talking about somebody who is technologically savvy. And look, it might have been there. Again, it would have been my first question at the press conference. How do you know it was Victoria actually behind the account? Fair question to ask. Second, and then I would have gone up and talked to the whole legal team and just asked for clarity. Do you have timestamps? Do you have any other physical evidence that account and that digital activity was Victoria and not Rex? They very well could have that. I just felt like it was something that was overwhelmingly missing. People wondering, like Marva, could she have been groomed from a young age? We hear about cases about kids being groomed quite frequently, too frequently for anyone's taste. But yeah, I mean, these are some of the questions that people are going to ask on social media. Julie alluding to the same thing with this comment. Smoky Mountain, and this is an opinion of our, based on this is the purpose of the Stream Center interactively, is to feature how the news content that we that we all view how it is being received by people. And Smokey says, I think it's totally reasonable that all members in this household had knowledge of the goings on in this house of horrors. That's how people are responding to this. Leslie, her taste in art may be questionable, but it isn't a smoking gun. Lawyer may have kept this information under wraps and presented it to a jury. Megan, it's strictly circumstantial. Is it compelling? Yes. But what if she has dark fantasies? Doesn't make her guilty. Yes. I mean, this is entirely true. You could be somebody who has darker fantasies than the average Joe or Jane. But it's not a crime to have darker fantasies. Now, when you act in a way that is criminal and acting on impulses that are tied to those dark fantasies, okay, now different story. But having darker fantasies, and it's not a crime. Her hair in one of the victims. Now you heard there at the end there was some clarification. I want to be clear to Kareen's comment. There's been some confusion about Asa, the wife's hair fibers being found on in some of the evidence that was gathered as a result of the murder investigations on remains, and the general idea right now, the belief is just that that those hair fibers were transferred, but let's just state the overwhelmingly obvious. Behind closed doors in Suffolk County, New York, with investigators as they examine this case, there's Asa isn't, her name hasn't been cleared. She isn't. They are without question examining everybody in the household, Victoria as well. Everyone is on the table as to what they knew and their connections to the alleged crimes by Heuermann. So, will it ever result in anything? That remains to be seen. I think, again, we're still pretty early on in this case, everybody. A lot of comments coming in. We're also 20 votes away from looking at our poll results. I'm very fascinated to see what that looks like. Jules82, hey, JB, I've not heard of this case before today. Can you give a brief summary of what he did? Jules, just Google Gilgo Beach murders. And these cases can be really difficult to summarize. And I usually refrain from summarizations because, or summaries of any kind, because you just miss so much in a 30-second synopsis. For example, when we were covering Murdoch, I refrained from doing too many summaries because that was such a deep, dark rabbit hole of so many allegations in the past tied to all members of the Murdoch family that it's hard to summarize. But Jules, I'll do my best. Alleged serial killer on Long Island in New York with 6 known victims, according to investigators at this time, going back more than 30 years into the early 90s. And the Gilgo 4 body parts that were found on Ocean Parkway on the southern end of Long Island has long puzzled investigators up until most recently last year, when a breakthrough in the case led them to New York City businessman and architect Rex Heuermann, who seemingly was living a relatively normal life, in the public view at that home right there in Massapequa Park on Long Island. But in reality, investigators say that behind the scenes, he was living a life of enjoying the torture and murder of his victims. Oh, how did I do? I do all right? Is that a good summary, guys? Did I miss anything? I missed a lot. That's the whole point. It's a summary, but. Kirsty, this presser shows awareness of what her father participated in. However, we all need more information. Before judging, we need more facts. Yeah, there's a reason that law enforcement didn't hold this press conference. It also might speak very, very loudly that law enforcement chose not to attend. Is it their way of saying we don't condone circumstantial evidence being presented in this way? Is it tyranny and law enforcement leadership saying we don't want to be associated with this because of how circumstantial it truly is? Does it go back to my fundamental number one question that they cannot definitively prove whether or not the account and the postings of that account and the shares on that account are tied to Victoria and not Rex himself? We don't know. You know what? I should check out Twitter. Mods and the folks on Twitter that do such a great job of monitoring things in real time. If any statement comes out from Tierney or Suffolk County Police, or if there's any response to this press conference, I really want to make sure that I hit it and have it included on here on the live stream. That's a very important part of the story, is law enforcement's take on exactly why they chose not to attend and their take on this evidence. Did they know about it? Do they believe it's true? Do they believe it's tied to the murders in any way, shape, or form? Their overall take, their generic take on what was presented today by John Ray and team. Miss Megan, I was wondering this too. Is it illegal to smear someone's name like this publicly? Oh, well, if it's baseless, it can be, yes. Slanderous accusations can absolutely be the focus of a civil case, of a lawsuit that you would file against somebody accusing you, and I mean, just look at Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Absolutely, but is that a card the Heuermann family or Victoria want to play, given what is currently happening with Rex and the active investigation? Tina, hey JB, I find it curious that John Ray never brought up Ace's name. He never misses an opportunity to do so. I found this press conference very strange. Yeah, it was all right. Look, in the opinion of our commenters, certainly strange. But no, I mean, I guess I would say just overall surprising that it wasn't focused on Asa. I think that's why you don't assume in this game, right? You don't play the game of assumptions, because the internet automatically assumed that Asa was going to be the focal point of this, and then there was the shock and awe in the chat when it was in fact Victoria. As I promised, when we received 500 votes, we would look at the poll results here. And I'd like to do so now, but still give everybody the opportunity to vote if they so choose, if they want their voice to be heard on heyjb.live. But you see at the bottom of your screen, we've eclipsed 506 votes. I'm curious what the split is going to be. I'm going to say more people are going to say, based on the chat and based on the social media response, I'm going to say more people are going to say no, but that's just, let's see. Oh, wow. I am wrong. Again, based on the social media chat, the comment section, I thought more people were going to say no. I'm surprised. I guess there is a slightly more silent majority with this story, at least in response to this. But this is very interesting. A majority of our poll respondents that watched this press conference and then went to our website to just answer a simple question, a yes or no question, more than 50%, 56% total, say that yes, they think that this evidence ties Victoria to the alleged murderer in this case, and the alleged murders of themselves. To his alleged murders, that's the way it's worded. Apologies. Because the murders happened. We know that the murders happened, but it's his alleged murders because he is being accused of said murders. Wow. All right, they're still the votes are still bouncing, 55-45, now 56-44 split. I thought that more people, based on the comments I was reading, were going to say no. Okay, we'll leave that open. NYR Marine. This evidence is not circumstantial of any crime. People are allowed to have messed up interests. This isn't evidence of anything but her character. Now, that's partially true, NYR Marine, because certain categories of pornography are going to fall under, and in different jurisdictions, going to fall under various crimes that if you distribute that version of pornography, you could be, of course, charged. And so there is the chance, depending on some of the awful the awful material that has allegedly been shared on this Tumblr account, there is the chance that something there would rise to the level of being a crime, but not a crime tied specifically to the murders of the six, at least on paper. This press conference today was connecting dots with a dotted line. You know what I mean? John never definitively said one is A connects to B. He just tried to navigate in a way through some dotted lines to allow you at home to reach the same conclusion that they have in their legal offices in New York. And according to this poll that we ran, unscientific social media poll, 55% of people believe that A connects to B, believes that this evidence ties Victoria to knowledge, at least, of the murders, or the murders in some capacity. Again, more people who are speaking very loudly in our comment section on HeyJB.live that are on the no side of this. Very loud comments on the no, not as loud comments on the yes to this question. Ampigal saying, Ampigal, I think, this is a really stupid presser. Seriously, what the heck does this have to do with anything? Why would my search history, what would my search history reveal? It is circumstantial evidence, and provided in a court of law, when you piece it together with other evidence, this can be admissible and this can be used. But you're talking about somebody who hasn't been charged of any crime. This isn't a piece of a puzzle because the puzzle doesn't yet fully exist. Because the puzzle right now is Rex. Victoria hasn't been implicated in any way. So you're throwing out all of these suggestions and all this circumstantial evidence on somebody who hasn't been formally accused of any crime. And this is why you see, I think, comments like this. But there is an alternate universe where this type of evidence being presented on somebody who's more of a central focus to an investigation, this is absolutely has massive legal consequences. It's just the fact that it's being tied to somebody who hasn't been even really mentioned by law enforcement as being connected to the murders in question. So you could make the argument, it makes tremendous sense why law enforcement chose not to attend. Circumstantial. Jesse, I can't believe this press conference. It felt like back in the days of satanic panic when people thought teenagers who wore black eyeliner were sacrificing babies. Again, starting off with a picture of Victoria in real life versus her just wearing some darker clothing, darker makeup, and appearing to have a more, if you would, gothic appearance. That's an odd place to start. I'm sorry. I just have to point that out. I try to be real with my audience, and I really do try to make it all about your opinion and only try to provide context where I can. And I know that sometimes that's a difficult line to skate down and not lean too far one way or the other. I get it. I understand. It's hard to do this job and just kind of stay, on that one side. But I have to point out, I have to keep it real with my audience, because I always try to keep it real when appropriate. Starting off the press conference by saying, here's a picture of her in real life. Here's her in darker makeup with darker clothes and the complete 180 appearance. How do you know it wasn't a picture taken on Halloween portraying a character? Okay, look, maybe I'm making too much of it, but honestly, it is a very strange spot for John to start. For any attorney to start, because we all have images of ourselves on social media where we look a little different. That isn't, I don't always wear a shirt and tie and a blazer. There are pictures of me on social media with a backwards Yankee hat on and shorts and outside with people socializing, drinking a beer. It's completely different than my appearance in this capacity. People have different appearances on social media. This is like ridiculous. I even have to explain this, but I feel like that starting point in the press conference made it necessary for me to point out to you, our audience, that you can appear different on social media than you are in real life. So weird. That's just my real take. I'm sorry. In about 5 minutes, this is going to be a last call for comments on HeyJB.live. In a few minutes, we're going to go back to YouTube. Actually, let's quickly go to Twitter. I promised people on Twitter that I would spotlight some of their comments. So let's grab this tweet from Viola. And we're going now to Twitter. X. You believe it is X or Twitter? Call it Twitter. X. Viola. Hashtag HeyJB. Definitely not sold that any family members assisted Rex Heuermann, but could he have used his daughter's artwork? Too many coincidences are not a coincidence. Where there is smoke, there is fire. And I totally understand where you're coming from, Viola, but there's just so much here that is circumstantial that even posing circumstantial questions about the circumstantial evidence is getting to a point where, as somebody tries to stay rooted in reality and fact-based on stream, we're getting to uncomfortable conversations. We are. These are uncomfortable conversations because of how circumstantial this all is. Now, yes, you stack up all the coincidences. There's 2 + 2 = 4. But we are talking about somebody who hasn't been accused. And again, I can't really see that much of a scenario where law enforcement isn't aware of this. Every law enforcement, larger ones, especially larger law enforcement agencies, are going to have an entire digital team dedicated to digital evidence, to suspects that have online personas, and the type of content that you share and the messages that you exchange and the things that you post are tied to who you are as a human being in 2024. Really has been for the last 20 plus years. So digital teams at law enforcement agencies are extremely important. And I have a hard time believing that law enforcement hadn't, like, this was a shock to them. Like, that they were watching this press conference going, oh my God. Oh my God. Look at this Tumblr account. We didn't know that. That would be a shock to me. You're going to tell me that the legal team with John Ray was able to find the Tumblr, but you're going to tell me that law enforcement was unable to do so? that it was unaware to that. I don't know. Tony, referencing our poll results on Twitter as well. Hashtag KJB. Wow, those results are sad. They just aired this girl's business out there, and more than half think it's more than what it is. Scary stuff. One of the opinions of one of our commenters on Twitter, referencing the poll results that you see on the bottom of your screen. The last we know, Karen Lee on Twitter, the last show, Karen Lee. I wonder if Karen Lee has a show called The Last Show. Hashtag KJB. We do not know what evidence was recently taken from that house. Well, we kind of do. There was the evidence, the documents that just came out. No doubt that there's more there. I mean, Tierney said in the press conference, Karen, that they still haven't gone through everything. So there's still more. There's no doubt. I get what you're saying. But to finish your comment, there could be direct ties of Rex's family members to victims or victims we do not even know about yet. Hashtags all around. Yeah, I mean, the evidence hasn't been completely gone through yet. There could be more evidence. I have been on record as stating, I think we're at the beginning of this, unfortunately, like that there's likely to be more. It was an assessment that Dr. Gary Bricado agreed with, that the odds of there just being 6 victims are, I don't know how great they are. You don't want there to be further loss of life, but you also want there to be clarity and something resembling closure for other victims on Long Island. The part that really freaked me out, that scared me, was the difference of opinion that Dr. Bricado and I had on geography. People that watched my last live stream know that I have nowhere near the experience that Bricado has in the world of psychiatrics. His work is beyond reputable. It is a standard at Boston College, and he's a respected psych evaluator. But what I said on stream last week is different than what he said, and I want you guys to put more stock, obviously, in what he said regarding geography than what I did. I shared that it would appear that somebody who was so detail-oriented and focused on avoiding capture, avoiding being found and discovered, somebody who scouted out locations, according to the documents, according to the allegations against Heuermann, scouted out locations, made notes of those locations, made notes of when certain highways were better traveled upon than others. I mean, somebody went to extraordinary lengths to avoid detection. I shared, this is somebody who appears to be quite comfortable with the geography of Suffolk County and Nassau County and Long Island. And I shared, I asked, I don't know how reasonable it would be to suggest that victims exist elsewhere outside of New York State or outside of the New York City metropolitan area. Bricado says I'm wrong, and you should listen to him and not me. Bricado says, based on his travels and based on the profile of somebody like the alleged serial killer in Heuermann, based on that profile, there could be cases elsewhere outside of New York. And that is a truly terrifying thought, because somebody who could be tied to murders in other jurisdictions, other states, families that never would have imagined in a million years that their loved one being lost to murder in insert state here is tied to a serial killer on Long Island. Absolutely. My jaw hit the floor just because I would have suspected that somebody who appeared to be at such a granular level focused on Long Island and didn't make any mention of any of traveling to commit any crimes. It was so Long Island focused. You would think that that would eliminate, or not eliminate, but severely and drastically lessen the odds of him committing such atrocities elsewhere. You would think that that would be the case, but Brucato is saying no. And so now going forward, you would hope that DNA profiles are established and more evidence is examined across the country, and you kind of take it from there. All right, let's re-engage the YouTube chat. Guys, I'm sorry. YouTube chat, please forgive me. I put baby in a corner. You guys are you know, the loyal, true people, as we're up to now, I think 600 votes or nearly 600 votes on the poll. Let's get back to YouTube, because the comment section on YouTube is way more manageable now than it was at the end of the presser, when everyone was just trying to get my attention or share their thoughts, and it was almost impossible to spotlight any Hey JB comments. As a reminder, we are interactive. You can either submit a VIP comment on heyjb.live, vote on the poll, comment here, or now, starting now, you can use hashtag HeyJB on YouTube Live. We'll do this for about 10 minutes before we have to wrap up the stream. So reading, again, I see the comments as they all come in, but they have to have hashtag HeyJB for me to be able to click on them. That's how it works. Baby Renee, hey JB. Oh, except, oh yeah, there's real life dismembering and decapitating happening in this home. And then, yes, I know it sounds crazy, but I'm a big baseball fan, and you will find me, Yankee cap, beer in hand. That is real. But no, back. Some kind comments coming in. Really appreciate it. Shout out Pensacola, one of my favorite towns. Blue Angels, man, the best. I still need to watch that doc on Prime Video, the Blue Angels doc. Man, I'm really looking forward to it. It's on, like, near the top of my list. Okay, other comments. I'm waiting for more Hey JB comments to come in. And now they're coming in, and now they're scrolling really fast. So everybody forgive me for a second as I try to read through them. Oh, this is interesting. Hold on. No, don't scroll away. Don't scroll away. That was interesting. Meredith on YouTube Live, hashtag HJB, hoping this doesn't damage the case. Is there a scenario, and this is where having a legal expert on stream would really be a tremendous benefit, but good luck finding a legal expert right now with Karen Reed going on. That trial is insane. I need help catching up on that trial because that trial is utterly bonkers with the trooper and the cross-examination happening there. Shout out Emily Baker, Peter Tragos doing amazing work. Some of my go-to legal experts, if I called them up right now and been like, guys, can you just come in for 10 minutes of Gilgo Beach, Long Island serial killer? They would, first of all, I'd be shocked if they even answered my call. They're on stream constantly with Karen Reed and doing a phenomenal job. Give them a follow. But yeah, could this distract from the case? I think is an interesting concept. But I would imagine that from a law enforcement perspective, they're focused on the facts, focused on evidence that they can use to prosecute. That's fair to say. S.L. Conley. Okay, good. Back to as I noted earlier, some of the more silent majority, if you will. S.L. Conley saying hashtag KJB. There's no way the daughter wasn't involved. There are going to be a lot of people that watch this press conference and say, okay, look, where there's smoke, there's fire. There is no doubt to me that the daughter wasn't involved in some way or had some knowledge of these atrocities in some way, shape, or form. That's just how people are gonna interpret it on one side of the aisle, but then the other side is gonna say, "Wow, this is so circumstantial that I can't buy it." Mr. Burt Wayne, hashtag HJB, how defamatory were some of his statements? I think alluding to Ray, right? Including they're cannibals, especially without the use of the word allegedly or any other disqualifiers. Bert, I'll tell you. I call you Bert. I'll call you Mr. Wayne because that, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, Mr. Wayne. I shifted in my seat. I'm somebody who always tries to use allegedly and accused and investigators say and attribute. And there's no way to be perfect in the world of live streaming, but I strive so hard to not associate labels without properly sourcing labels as to where they came from and using those words to remind our audience innocent until proven guilty. And yeah, I shifted in my seat, but an attorney isn't going to be held to the same standards that I as a journalist will be held to. Now, could it be considered defamatory? Yeah. If Victoria's name is ever cleared, if Tierney or a prosecutor of any kind, or it was associated with the case, or a chief of police or a lead investigator, years from now, even in something like a Netflix documentary, were to come forth and say, I have, through my expert opinion and through the course of countless hours of investigating, come to the conclusion that Victoria had no knowledge of the atrocities committed by the alleged Rex Heuermann, then you have a basis, a ground to perhaps in civil court sue for defamation. But it's going to be a stretch when you have this much put forth, circumstantial or not. Being able to win that case is going to be exponentially more difficult when you have it in the context of, some really disturbing and messed up subject matter. Pardon me for the kind of casual label, but it is. Man, a ton of comments, guys. I can't go for too much longer. The Stream Center is going to be used by others today. Let's see. Somebody's saying the volume's not good. What? Susan, I want you to be able to hear. Everyone else okay with the volume? Comments coming in fast. Everybody, please forgive me. It's an excellent observation by Beezy. Maybe clear up how young the daughter was at the time of the murder. She wasn't 27 then. Okay, this is a point that is valid, and then also to, well, look, yes, if she's 27, she was born in 1997. Is my math right? 97-ish, in that range, 96, 97, depending on month. And so based on that, and based on the allegations, Heuermann's already a murderer at the time she is born, because of the one victim that goes back to the early 90s, right? And then trying to remember all the dates. I have it in my notes. I don't have it up on screen at the moment of the chronological order of the 6 victims. But so as under this, you're talking about a daughter who has, if she is aware or becomes aware over the course of her life that her dad is, again, based on the allegations, a monster, then is that the only normal she knows? Now we're getting into full invitation, by the way, to Dr. Gary Bricado coming on stream. I'd be fascinated to ask these types of questions of what it does if someone is aware that their dad is a monster beyond comprehension. What does that do to somebody as a child? That's a fascinating conversation, one that's probably really quite dark, but invitation right now. Dr. Picado, come on. I'd love to pick your brain if you have the time. But yeah, I mean, that Heuermann would then, based on the allegations, have committed murders over the course of Victoria's life. That's her normal then, if she's aware or becomes aware. Now, you know, it's likely not Saturday morning conversation over a bowl of Frosted Flakes where you're like, wow, you know, can you believe what happened last weekend? That was something. That's likely not the way that it was brought up in that household. What really becomes particularly dark is if either Victoria has suspicions over the course of her life that her dad has allegedly committed these acts, these crimes, or if there was the discovery. If at one point in Victoria's life, did she find out, and was it a shock? Is that a scenario at play to everybody who is saying that is under the belief that Victoria knew? Is that possible, that there was this one moment, and it would probably be quite a disturbing moment for anybody to find out about your family member in that way, learning that they are not who you believe that not the person you believe they are. But yeah, it makes you wonder what Victoria's life would have been like, whether she was aware or unaware. Yeah, there was some references to sexual objects. I'm seeing the chat. You know, furry items that I was not expecting to have to address in the post press conference live stream, but here we are. That was unexpected. Nancy believes a Hey JB live comment. Definitely in the know at minimum. Wow. Kara says, #HJB, it seems weird with the daughter's age. I don't know what's so weird about it. She's 27. Oh, that comment didn't, why didn't that comment pop up? Try that again. Oh, maybe because it was deleted. I think it was a deleted comment. Hey, yeah, right here, Kara, it looks like you deleted your comment and resubmitted it. It seems weird with the daughter's age. And then no, your actual comment or oh, that's weird. I'm clicking on a comment that is different here, Kara, and then it pops up on screen as different on my live stream. That is weird. I've never seen that before. Kara, you're a sorceress. But one more time. No, I can't even click on it. Are you deleting them? Are you deleting them as I'm clicking on them? This is it's the first. But the question was, how do they think the daughter could be involved with her age? Well, there it is. Okay, cool. There were murders that took place into the 2000s. So, even as not involved is a word that I think aware is something that's different. Aware and involved are different. So, again, law enforcement not being at this press conference really speaks volumes. One or two more before we get a wrap. Yeah, look, this actually is a good final point to make. Hey, JB, I'm on the fence until I hear from Ellie on this. Mods, commenters, Twitter warriors out there, can you guys let me know if we just bugged out a little bit. Hopefully we're still live as we go to Slider Cam. Can you guys let me know, has there been any okay, let me explain something. Okay, reporters in New York on Long Island, their very first stop after this press conference should have been at the Suffolk County Police Department or the Office of District Attorney Ray Tierney and knocking on that door. If I'm in the live truck, if I'm a reporter in the news van, and I'm on Long Island, I am beelining it. I'm following the speed limit, but I am going as quickly as humanly possible to get comment from Tierney or Suffolk County Police. That's where I'm heading. So has anybody, Twitter warriors and moderators and all of our friends on social media, has anybody seen any reporters get a text response, an email response, a statement, a interview with anybody on Long Island that has spoke to Tierney or any other law enforcement leadership in this case? I'll wait. I'll give this a few minutes just to for anybody to chime in. I haven't seen anything, but live streaming, believe me, I have enough around me. I have not been able to follow every reporter in New York on this case. I don't have enough screens, surprisingly enough, in here to monitor every single reporter in New York that is covering this story. This screen, I'm reading your comments coming in. If you haven't ever seen the Stream Center, this is what it looks like for our newer viewers. Stream control over here, live chat over here. This monitor over here, I communicate with the newsroom, which is located in that direction. All the hardworking men and women of WFLA. Shout out our weather team right over here, our meteorologists. They work right next to me and have to listen to me go on and on and on. Wow, Echo Lamb. I think that Dr. Gary providing his expert opinion is helpful in a situation like this. That's all I'll say on that. I think it can be and I think his words are really do. His analysis was interesting, and I think he chose his words carefully. I think that's fair to say. No, I'm reading your comments. Crime Time with Jess, I see you. You can comment. But I'm just trying to gain... I'm not seeing anything. So if you guys are telling me that we haven't heard from Tierney, there hasn't been a statement issued or anything like that. Oh, shout out Rachel Tucker in the WFLA newsroom. I mentioned that I work with some tremendously talented people in the WFLA newsroom. Rachel, one of our great digital content producers on WFLA.com, says, I asked Suffolk County Police for comment and have not heard back. So we can formally say that WFLA.com has reached out for comment from Suffolk County Police, and we are awaiting a response. Interesting. Thanks, Rachel. Appreciate you. Back to Bruce Wayne. I mean, Mr. Wayne. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Yeah. Hashtag HJB. Do you believe that DT Gary believes any of today's, in the opinion of our commenter, Mr. Wayne, hogwash? I would love to find out with you guys. He's invited onto the live stream. I would love to pick his brain and ask him. But I don't think he would have participated if he thought that there wasn't something there that was particularly relevant. Was he? I do not know if he was paid to be there today. There had to be, of course, some incentive in there for him to offer his opinion. But let's do a quick plug. Bear with me. WFLA.com. Instead of hearing me talk about it, you can read about it. And Rachel just finished her article on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take her link that she just sent me and put it into the comment section. And you guys can support our local journalism here at WFLA by clicking on the link in the description on the video or in the pinned comment that I just posted. Live here again from the Stream Center. This is going to wrap up our live stream. We finish with 635 votes. Do you think this evidence ties Heuermann's daughter to his alleged murders? An unscientific social media-based poll, 55% say yes, 45% say no. Thank you so much for participating in interactive journalism, folks. We really appreciate it. Here from the Stream Center, I'm JB Biunno. More coverage on this story and others. Also, as well, there's a form on heyjb.live if you want to submit story suggestions. Which story should we be covering from here in the Stream Center? We would really appreciate your feedback, as always. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time here on Hey JB Live from the Stream Center in Tampa, Florida.